You are in violation of federal air regulations and I am ordering you to stop immediately. Comply now or you will be removed from this aircraft.
Sir, you're in the wrong seat. I need you to move, now.
No, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Last warning, move to economy or I'll have you removed.
You have no idea who you're talking to.
Sir, this is not your seat. Let go.
It is my seat.
Read the ticket.
I want this plane grounded immediately and charges pressed upon arrival.
Is he getting me fired?
Sir, you need to stand up. That seat isn't yours. The words cut through the quiet of first class like a blade. Heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. The hum of the cabin tightened into something sharp, something watching. Daniel Brooks didn't move. He sat still in seat 2A, one hand resting lightly on the armrest, the other holding a folded boarding pass. His breathing stayed slow, measured, but his jaw locked just enough to betray the shift. Across the aisle, a man in a navy blazer leaned forward, curious. A woman with silver hair lowered her reading glasses, eyes narrowing. Someone near the window had already lifted a phone, the faint click of recording barely audible under the engine's low growl. The flight attendant stood over him. Amanda Lewis, early 30s, perfect posture, perfect smile, except it wasn't reaching her eyes anymore. "I'm going to need you to step into the aisle," she said again, voice firmer now. Controlled, practiced. There's been a reassignment. Daniel finally looked up. Not angry, not confused. Just steady. "I booked this seat," he said. His voice was calm, low, the kind that didn't need volume to carry weight. "Weeks ago." Amanda's smile tightened. A flicker of something passed behind her eyes. Not uncertainty. Decision. "I understand, sir. But we have a priority passenger arriving. This situation isn't up for debate." Behind her, movement. A man stepped into the aisle like he already owned the space. Richard Coleman, late 50s, expensive suit. The kind that didn't wrinkle, didn't bend, didn't apologize. He glanced at Daniel once, quick and dismissive, then reached up to place his leather bag in the overhead bin above seat 2A. No hesitation, no question, like Daniel wasn't even there. Daniel watched him, really watched him. The ease, the assumption, the quiet agreement between him and the crew that didn't need to be spoken out loud. Around them, the cabin shifted. A businessman in row 1 checked his watch, irritated. A couple whispered behind their hands. The air felt heavier now, like pressure building before a storm. Amanda leaned in slightly, lowering her voice just enough to sound polite, but not enough to hide the edge. "Sir, if you don't comply, we will have to delay the flight. And that will be on you." There it was. Not a request. A warning. Daniel's fingers tightened around the boarding pass. The paper crinkled softly. Small sound, sharp in the silence. He had seen this before. Not here. Not like this. But the pattern was familiar. The look, the assumption, the quiet rewriting of reality happening in real time, as if his presence needed to be corrected. He exhaled slowly. Across the aisle, the woman with silver hair shook her head faintly, unsure. The man recording adjusted his angle. The red dot blinked. Watching. Waiting. Richard settled into the seat. Daniel's seat. He adjusted his cufflinks, leaned back. Comfortable. Entitled. Like the outcome had never been in question. Amanda straightened. "Last chance, sir." The cabin held its breath. Daniel looked down at his hands for a moment, then back up, and something shifted. Not in his posture, not in his voice, in the room. Because the man they thought they were removing wasn't the man they thought he was. Not even close. And in a few minutes, everyone on that plane was going to learn exactly how wrong they were. Daniel didn't stand. The silence stretched, thin and electric. You could feel it in the way people stopped breathing all at once, in the way the engines seemed louder, harsher, like they were waiting too. Amanda's smile disappeared completely. "Sir," she said, slower now, sharper. "I'm not asking again." Daniel tilted his head slightly, studying her. Not her uniform, not her badge, her eyes, the way they held just enough certainty to be dangerous, the kind of certainty built on assumptions no one ever questioned. "Then don't," he said. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. A ripple moved through the cabin. A man in the second row shifted in his seat, uncomfortable now. The woman with silver hair pressed her lips together, eyes flicking between Daniel and Amanda, like she was watching something she couldn't quite name. Amanda blinked once. Just once. Then her posture hardened. "All right," she said, straightening. "We'll do this the formal way." She turned, already signaling toward the front of the cabin. A subtle motion, but it carried weight. Authority. Consequence. Richard let out a quiet chuckle under his breath, adjusting his seat like he was settling in for a show. "Should have just moved, buddy," he muttered, not even looking at Daniel. Not worth making a scene. Daniel didn't respond. He just watched him. Calm. Still. But inside, something old stirred. Not anger. Not yet. Something colder. Something that remembered. He had been in rooms like this before. Boardrooms where people smiled too quickly. Deals where the terms changed after he walked in. Conversations that shifted tone the moment they saw his face. Different setting. Same script. Footsteps approached. Heavy. Decisive. Michael Turner, the flight supervisor, stepped into the aisle. Early 40s. Broad shoulders. The kind of presence that expected compliance before speaking a word. His eyes moved from Amanda to Richard, then finally to Daniel. "Assessment. Quick. Calculated." "What seems to be the issue?" he asked, though his tone suggested he had already chosen a side. Amanda answered immediately. "Passenger refusing reassignment. Holding up departure." Michael nodded once, then looked at Daniel. "Sir, I'm going to need you to gather your belongings and step off the aircraft so we can resolve this at the gate. Not move seats. Step off." The words landed heavier than anything before. A low murmur spread through the cabin. Someone whispered, "That's excessive." Another voice hushed it quickly. Daniel let the moment sit. Let the weight of it settle into the air, where everyone could feel it. "Resolve what?" he asked quietly. Michael's expression didn't change. "Your seat assignment." Daniel glanced briefly at the overhead bin. His bag still there, untouched. Then back to Michael. "My seat assignment hasn't changed. It has now," Michael replied. There it was. Not confusion, not mistake, decision. Behind them, a phone rang softly, quickly silenced. The man recording shifted closer into the aisle, trying to capture everything, the red dot still blinking. Witness. Daniel leaned back slightly in his seat, his gaze moving across the cabin. Faces watching, some curious, some uncomfortable, some already convinced he was the problem. He nodded once. Slow. I see. Michael gestured toward the front. Then let's not make this more difficult than it needs to be. Daniel looked at his hands again. The faint crease in his boarding pass, the steady rise and fall of his chest, every detail sharp, grounded. Then he reached into his jacket. Amanda tensed immediately. Michael's shoulders tightened, but Daniel didn't pull out anything threatening. Just his phone. He unlocked it with a single motion, smooth, familiar. Then scrolled, calm as ever, like none of this urgency applied to him. Michael frowned. Sir, now is not the time. Daniel raised a finger slightly. Not aggressive, not loud, just enough to stop him. And for a split second, it worked. The cabin froze again. Daniel lifted the phone to his ear. Waited. 1 ring, 2. Then someone answered. Daniel's voice changed. Not louder, not harsher, just different. Yeah, he said quietly. I need you on the line. Now. He glanced up at Amanda, at Michael, at Richard sitting comfortably in his seat. And this time, when he looked at them, there was no patience left, only certainty. Everything was about to change. The voice on the other end picked up fast. No delay, no confusion. Mr. Brooks. Not Daniel, not Sir, Mr. Brooks. The shift was subtle, but it landed. Daniel didn't speak right away. He let the silence breathe into the cabin, let those 2 words hang in the air just long enough for people to feel that something wasn't lining up anymore. I need you to connect me to senior operations, he said, calm, precise. And I need it done in the next 60 seconds. A pause. Short. Controlled. Yes, sir. Stay on the line. Amanda's eyes flickered. Just for a moment. Michael's jaw tightened, his authority meeting something it didn't recognize yet. Richard shifted slightly in the seat, his confidence cracking at the edges, though he tried to hide it by checking his watch. What exactly do you think you're doing? Michael asked, his voice lower now, more cautious than before. Daniel didn't look at him. Fixing a mistake, he replied. Around them, the cabin leaned in, without moving. The man recording took a step closer, his phone steady now, capturing every word. The woman with silver hair sat straighter, her expression sharpening as if she sensed the ground shifting beneath the surface. Amanda crossed her arms, defensive. Sir, making calls isn't going to change airline policy. Daniel finally looked at her. Policy? He said softly. The word sat between them. Then he smiled. Not warm, not friendly. Knowing. The line clicked again. Another voice joined. Older. Sharper. The kind of voice used to being listened to. This is corporate operations. Who am I speaking with? Daniel didn't hesitate. This is Daniel Brooks. A beat. I need the name of your CEO on this call. Now. The words didn't rise. They didn't need to. They hit harder because they didn't try. Michael blinked. Amanda's posture shifted again, uncertainty now bleeding through the edges of her control. Richard stopped pretending not to listen. You're speaking with operations, the voice replied, measured. But something underneath it had changed. Alert now. Daniel leaned back slightly, one arm resting along the seat, that was still, technically, his. Good, he said. Then you're aware that I'm currently being removed from a paid first-class seat. Publicly. Without cause. On a full aircraft. Silence. Not just on the phone. In the cabin. Every passenger within earshot felt it. The words weren't emotional. They were factual. Clean. Dangerous. Amanda opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Michael glanced at her, then back at Daniel, recalculating in real time. That's not accurate, Michael said quickly, stepping in. This passenger is refusing. Daniel raised his hand again, and Michael stopped. Again. Not because he had to. Because something told him he should. Everything from this moment forward is being documented. Daniel continued into the phone. Audio. Video. Witnesses, including your staff's statements. The man recording shifted his phone slightly higher, almost instinctively confirming it. I want confirmation, Daniel said, his tone tightening just enough that your company is prepared to defend this decision publicly. The voice on the phone didn't answer right away this time. Somewhere behind that line, things were moving. Fast. Amanda's face had lost color. Just a little. Enough to notice. Her eyes darted to Michael, searching for certainty that wasn't there anymore. Richard leaned forward now, his voice lower, uncertain. Hey, maybe we should just stay out of this, Amanda snapped, too quickly, too sharp. Daniel heard it. Everyone did. The cracks were showing now. Michael exhaled slowly, running a hand along his jaw. The authority he walked in with was thinning, replaced by something else. Risk. The voice returned on the phone, tighter now. Mr. Brooks, can you clarify your identity for us? There it was, the question they should have asked first. Daniel's eyes moved across the cabin one last time. Faces. Phones. Witnesses. Then he spoke. Slow. Clear. Unmistakable. I'm the majority shareholder of Brooks Technologies. A pause. And your airline is currently in negotiations with my company. The air left the room. Not gradually. All at once. Amanda took a step back. Michael didn't move. Richard went completely still. Daniel lowered the phone slightly, just enough to look at all of them. And this time, there was no doubt left in his voice. You might want to rethink what happens next. No one spoke. Not Amanda. Not Michael. Not even Richard. The cabin, just seconds ago full of quiet judgment, had gone completely still. You could hear the faint rattle of the overhead vents, the low hum of the engines waiting for clearance. Every sound felt sharper now, like the world had narrowed to this one moment. Michael's eyes stayed locked on Daniel, searching for something to push back against. Doubt. Weakness. Anything. He didn't find it. You're saying, Michael began, but the sentence didn't finish. It couldn't. Not without committing to something he was no longer sure he controlled. Daniel didn't help him. He just watched. Calm. Unmoved. Certain. On the phone, the voice from operations came back, but it wasn't the same voice anymore. The confidence was gone, replaced by something tighter. Controlled panic. Mr. Brooks, we're escalating this internally. Please remain where you are. Remain where you are. The irony hung in the air. Daniel gave a slight nod. I'm not going anywhere. Across the aisle, the man recording adjusted his grip again, his breathing a little faster now. The woman with silver hair leaned forward, her earlier uncertainty gone, replaced with quiet recognition. She had seen power before. This was power. Amanda swallowed. Hard. Her eyes moved from Daniel to Michael, then to Richard, then back again, like she was trying to find a version of this situation where she still had control. There wasn't one. Richard shifted in the seat, not comfortably anymore. His fingers tapped once against the armrest, then stopped. He cleared his throat. "Look," he said, voice lower now. "Careful. Maybe there's been some kind of mix-up. I don't need this specific seat." Amanda turned to him, sharp. "Sir, please." "No," Richard cut in, louder than he meant to. Then softer. "It's fine. I can sit in my assigned seat." Assigned seat? The phrase landed differently now. Amanda's face tightened, but she didn't respond. She couldn't. Not without admitting something had gone wrong. Michael finally stepped forward again, but slower this time. Measured. Every movement deliberate, like he was walking across something fragile. "Mr. Brooks," he said, choosing each word carefully. "If there's been any misunderstanding..." Daniel raised his eyes to him, and Michael stopped again. Twice now. The realization hit him, subtle but undeniable. He wasn't leading this situation anymore. He was reacting to it. "There wasn't a misunderstanding," Daniel said quietly. The words weren't aggressive. They didn't need to be. They knew exactly what they were doing. Amanda flinched, small, almost invisible. But it was there. Behind them, a soft chime echoed through the cabin. A notification. Another phone lighting up. Then another. The ripple moved fast now, digital and silent. The man recording glanced down briefly at his screen, eyes widening. "It's already out there," he whispered, not realizing he'd said it out loud. Michael heard him. Of course he did. Everything tightened. "What does that mean?" he asked. No one answered him directly, but the answer was everywhere. Dozens of eyes. Phones raised, messages moving faster than anyone in this cabin could control. The story had left the plane. Daniel lowered his phone, ending the call. Slowly. Intentionally. He didn't rush. Because he didn't need to. Michael's voice came out lower now. "Not authority. Not anymore. Who else have you contacted?" Daniel met his gaze. "My legal team," he said, "and a few people who care about how your company treats its customers. A beat. And investors who are currently deciding whether your airline has a future worth funding. That landed harder than anything else." Michael's shoulders dropped, just slightly. Amanda looked like she had been pulled out of her own body, standing there but no longer present, her confidence drained out through cracks she couldn't seal. Richard stood up. Not dramatically, not loudly, just enough to step out of the seat. "I'll take mine," he said, avoiding Daniel's eyes completely now. No one stopped him. No one told him to. Because the decision had already been made. Just not by the people who thought they were in charge. Daniel didn't move. He didn't need to. He was already exactly where he belonged. And for the first time since this started, everyone else knew it too. Richard stepped fully into the aisle, adjusting his jacket like nothing had happened, but his hands weren't steady. Not anymore. He avoided eye contact with everyone, especially Daniel, and moved toward row 2C without another word. No one spoke. Not because they didn't have anything to say, because now they understood exactly what they had just witnessed. Amanda stood frozen for a second too long. Then she forced herself to move, smoothing her uniform, trying to rebuild something that had already collapsed. "Sir, if you'd like, we can assist you with—" Daniel didn't even look at her. The sentence died before it finished. Michael cleared his throat, stepping forward again, but carefully this time. Every movement slower, controlled, calculated like a man trying to walk back across a line he had already crossed. "Mr. Brooks," he said, voice lower, almost measured into submission. "We'd like to correct this situation immediately." Daniel leaned back slightly, one arm resting along the edge of the seat, eyes steady. "Correct it," he repeated. The words weren't a question. They were a test. Michael nodded quickly. Yes, of course. There was clearly a breakdown in communication. A breakdown. Daniel let the phrase sit in the air. Across the aisle, the man with the phone gave a faint, almost disbelieving shake of his head. The woman with silver hair closed her book completely now, her attention fixed. Her expression no longer uncertain but quietly resolved. They all heard it, and they all knew it wasn't true. This wasn't communication, Daniel said. Each word landed clean, precise. This was a decision. Amanda's eyes dropped. Michael didn't respond right away. He couldn't. Not without choosing between defending his staff or saving what was left of the situation. He chose survival. "You're right," he said finally. The admission was small, but it changed everything. Behind him, another notification chime echoed. Then another. The cabin wasn't silent anymore. It was alive in a different way now. Quiet, but charged. Information moving faster than the aircraft ever could. Michael glanced briefly toward the front of the plane, where a junior crew member stood frozen near the galley, phone in hand, eyes wide. He knew what that meant. This wasn't contained anymore. "Sir," Michael continued, turning back to Daniel, "we are prepared to make this right. You will remain in your assigned seat. And we will ensure that this kind of situation does not happen again. Ensure. Future tense." Daniel watched him for a long second, then shook his head. "No," he said. The word landed heavier than anything before. Amanda looked up sharply. Michael blinked, thrown off balance again. "No," he repeated. Daniel's voice stayed calm, flat, controlled. "You don't get to fix this with a promise." The cabin tightened again, not with confusion this time, with understanding. Daniel leaned forward slightly now, his presence filling the space in a way it hadn't before. Not louder, not aggressive, just undeniable. "You publicly removed me from a seat I paid for," he said. "You threatened me. You backed someone else's claim without evidence." Amanda's breathing hitched. Michael's face hardened, but not in resistance. In recognition. Danielle continued, each word sharper than the last. "And you did it because you decided I didn't belong here." No one argued. Not a single voice. Because the truth, once spoken out loud, had nowhere to hide. Michael exhaled slowly, running a hand along his jaw again. The man who had walked in with authority was gone. What remained was someone trying to contain damage that was already spreading. "What would you like us to do?" he asked. The question wasn't rhetorical. It was surrender. Daniel looked at him, then at Amanda, then briefly across the cabin at the people who had watched, recorded, judged, stayed silent. Witnesses. Then back to Michael. "I want names," Daniel said. A beat. "Everyone involved." Amanda's face went pale. Michael didn't hesitate this time. "You'll have them." Daniel nodded once. "And I want a formal report filed before this plane leaves the ground." Another pause. "Done," Michael said. Daniel leaned back again, the tension in his shoulders easing just slightly. Not because it was over, because it had only just begun. And now, they all knew who was in control. Michael turned immediately, his voice low but urgent. "Amanda, I need your full report. Now. Names, timeline, and everything." Amanda didn't move. For a second, she just stood there, eyes unfocused, like her mind hadn't caught up with what was happening to her. Then she nodded too quickly, almost mechanically, and stepped back toward the galley. "Yes, yes, of course." Her voice sounded smaller now, thinner. Not authority. Accountability. Richard had already settled into seat 2C, but he wasn't relaxed, not even close. His shoulders were tight. His hands folded too neatly in his lap. He stared straight ahead, avoiding every glance, every reflection in the window beside him. The man who had walked in like he owned the plane now looked like he wanted to disappear inside it. Daniel noticed. He noticed everything. The shift in posture, the silence that followed power when it changed hands. The way people suddenly found interest in their phones, their magazines, anything but the truth sitting right in front of them. Across the aisle, the man recording lowered his phone for the first time. Not because the moment had passed, because it had landed. The woman with silver hair spoke quietly, almost to herself. "It always starts like this." No one responded, but several people heard her. Michael returned, a tablet now in his hand, his movements sharper, more precise. Not confident, efficient, like a man trying to outrun consequences. "Mr. Brooks," he said, stopping beside Daniel again. "We're documenting everything as requested. The report will be submitted before departure." Daniel didn't look up right away. He adjusted his cuff slightly, smoothing a line that didn't need smoothing. "Before departure," he repeated. Michael nodded. "Yes." Daniel lifted his eyes. "And after that?" The question hung there. Michael hesitated. "Just long enough. We'll escalate internally. Review the incident. Take appropriate action." Appropriate. Daniel held his gaze. "That word means nothing," he said. Michael swallowed. The truth of it sat heavy between them. Behind him, Amanda reappeared, holding her own device now, fingers moving quickly, typing, correcting, deleting, rewriting. Her composure was gone. In its place was urgency. Fear dressed as professionalism. She didn't look at Daniel. Not once. "Here," she said, handing the tablet to Michael. "Initial statement." Her voice barely steady. Michael scanned it quickly, his eyes moving faster than his mind could keep up. Then he passed it toward Daniel. "If you'd like to review." Daniel didn't take it. "I'm not here to edit your version," he said. The tablet stayed suspended in the air for a second too long before Michael pulled it back. Another mistake. Another moment recorded. Another piece of evidence. Behind them, a soft buzz moved through the cabin again. Phones lighting up, screens shifting. The man across the aisle glanced down, then back up at Daniel. Something like respect now in his expression. "Sir," he said quietly, "it's trending." Michael's head snapped toward him. "What is?" The man hesitated, then turned his screen slightly. "A video. This video. Angles from 3 different seats. Clear audio, captions already forming, comments stacking faster than they could be read. Daniel didn't need to see it. He already knew. Michael's face drained, not dramatically, but enough. Enough to understand the scale of what had just happened. This just happened," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "No," Daniel replied. Now he leaned forward again. "This has been happening." The correction landed harder than anything else, because it wasn't about him anymore. Amanda closed her eyes briefly. Just a second, like she was trying to disappear from inside her own body. Michael straightened, forcing himself back into motion. "We need to contact headquarters again," he said under his breath, already turning. He stopped, turned back. "Mr. Brooks, is there anything else you require right now?" "Require?" Daniel considered the word, then shook his head once. "No." A pause, then quieter. "But there will be." Michael nodded. He believed him, because now it wasn't a situation. It was a reckoning, and the plane hadn't even left the ground yet. The cabin door remained open. That alone was enough to tell anyone paying attention that something had gone very wrong. Flight attendants were supposed to be moving with rhythm now, closing bins, checking belts, preparing for pushback. Instead, they hovered, uncertain, glancing at each other for cues that weren't coming. Daniel sat still in seat 2A, exactly where he had always been. But now the space around him felt different, not just quieter, heavier, like the air itself had shifted to accommodate something larger than a single incident. Michael stood near the front, phone pressed to his ear again, voice low and urgent. "Yes, it's already out. Multiple angles. No. We don't have control of it anymore." A pause. "I understand, but we're still on the ground." He listened, nodded, then glanced back at Daniel. Quick. Careful. Like looking directly at a problem that could cost everything. Amanda remained near the galley, her hands gripping the edge of the service counter just a little too tightly. She wasn't typing anymore, wasn't moving, just standing there, thinking, replaying, trying to find the moment where this could have gone differently. There wasn't one. Not anymore. Across the aisle, the man who had been recording leaned toward the woman with silver hair. "It's everywhere now," he whispered. "Twitter, Facebook, even local news picked it up." She nodded slowly, eyes never leaving Daniel. "It doesn't take long," she said. "Not when it looks like that. Looks like that." No one needed clarification. Richard shifted again in his seat. He had taken off his jacket now, folding it neatly over his lap, but his fingers kept adjusting it, smoothing invisible wrinkles. Control. He was trying to regain it, but every movement made it clearer he had already lost it. Daniel noticed. He noticed the way Richard avoided his reflection in the window, the way his breathing had changed. Slightly faster, slightly uneven. The confidence was gone, replaced by something quieter. Regret. Michael ended the call and walked back down the aisle, slower this time, each step measured like he was carrying weight. He stopped beside Daniel. "Corporate is sending a directive," he said. "They want a full delay until this is resolved." Daniel looked at him. "They should," he replied. Michael nodded once. "They're also requesting," he hesitated, choosing the words carefully, "that we issue a formal apology immediately. On record." Amanda's head snapped up from across the cabin. "An apology. Not later. Not privately. Now." Daniel leaned back slightly, considering it. "To who?" he asked. Michael blinked. "To you." Daniel held his gaze. Not enough. The words were quiet, but final. Michael exhaled slowly. He understood. He just didn't want to. Behind him, one of the junior attendants stepped forward, voice unsure. "Sir, passengers are asking what's going on." Michael didn't turn. "Tell them we're addressing a delay." "That won't hold," Daniel said. Michael looked back at him. "They already know," Daniel continued. "You're not controlling the narrative anymore." The truth landed clean. Michael closed his eyes briefly. Just a second. Then opened them again, sharper now. Focused. "What do you want the announcement to say?" he asked. "Not if." "What?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He let the question sit. Let it stretch into the space where everyone could feel it. The crew. The passengers. The ones pretending not to listen. Then he spoke. "Tell them the truth." Amanda shook her head instinctively, stepping forward. "We can't just—" "Yes," Daniel said, cutting through her before she finished. "Not louder. Just absolute." "You can." She stopped. Because deep down, she knew. Michael's voice dropped. "If we say this publicly, it becomes official." "It already is," Daniel replied. Another pause, longer this time. Then Michael nodded. Decision made. He turned toward the intercom panel at the front of the cabin. His hand hovered for a moment over the button. Hesitation. Fear. Then he pressed it. The soft chime echoed through the plane. Every head turned. Every conversation stopped. Daniel didn't move. He didn't need to. Because now, the truth was about to be heard by everyone. Not just the ones who were watching, but the ones who thought they could ignore it. Michael's voice came through the cabin, steady at first, practiced, the kind of tone passengers trusted without thinking. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. We are currently addressing a situation in the first-class cabin." A pause. Not long, but long enough. Daniel watched him from his seat, watched the moment where Michael could still choose the safe version, the version that buried truth under neutral words. Michael didn't take it. This delay is due to an internal error involving a passenger who was incorrectly asked to give up a confirmed first-class seat. The air changed. You could feel it ripple from the front of the cabin to the back. Heads turning, eyes widening. People leaning forward, not hiding it anymore. Amanda stood frozen. Every word landed on her like weight. Michael continued, slower now, each sentence heavier than the last. That request should not have been made. It was a failure on our part, and we are addressing it immediately. Silence followed. Not confusion. Recognition. Across the aisle, the man with the phone raised it again, capturing the announcement now, his face tight with disbelief. The woman with silver hair closed her eyes briefly, then opened them, something resolved settling in her expression. Finally. Someone said it. Richard shifted again, this time more abruptly. His fingers tightened around the armrest, knuckles whitening. He stared forward, but there was nowhere left to hide. Not now. The words had reached everyone. Michael's voice came back through the speaker, quieter but sharper. We sincerely apologize to the passenger involved and to all customers on this flight. We are taking immediate action to ensure accountability. Accountability. The word echoed differently now. Not corporate. Personal. The intercom clicked off. No one spoke right away. Then the whispers started. Low at first, then spreading. Not chaotic. Focused. Directed. They admitted it. Did you hear that? That's rare. It's about time. Daniel sat still, absorbing none of it and all of it at once. He didn't look around. He didn't need validation. This wasn't about approval. It was about correction. Michael turned slowly from the intercom, his face tighter now, like something inside him had shifted permanently. He walked back toward Daniel, but this time there was no authority left in his steps, only responsibility. That's done, he said quietly. Daniel nodded once, but his eyes didn't soften, because it still wasn't enough. Amanda stepped forward, her movements hesitant, uncertain. Gone was the controlled precision from before. In its place was something fragile, real. Mr. Brooks, she said, voice unsteady. She stopped. The words didn't come, not because she didn't know what to say, because now she understood what it meant. Daniel looked at her, for the first time, not as someone blocking his path, as someone standing in the consequences of her own choices. You believed it, he said. No anger, just clarity. Amanda's eyes filled, not dramatically, not falling apart, but enough to show the crack. I thought, she started. I know what you thought, Daniel said. That ended it, because it was true. Behind them, another wave of notifications moved through the cabin. Phones buzzing, screens lighting up again. The man recording glanced down, then looked up, his voice barely above a whisper. They're picking up the company name now. Michael heard it. Of course he did. Everything was louder now, even the quieted parts. What are they saying? He asked. The man hesitated, then turned the screen slightly. Headlines forming in real time. Airline discrimination incident. First-class passenger removed, corporate ties revealed. Michael stared at it for a second too long, then looked back at Daniel. Not as a problem, as a force. This is bigger than this flight, he said. Daniel held his gaze. It always was. The truth settled into the cabin like gravity. No one escaped it. Not the crew, not the passengers, not the company waiting on the ground, and not the system that had allowed this moment to exist in the first place. The plane still hadn't moved, but everything else already had. The aircraft door finally closed. The sound was soft, mechanical, final. But it didn't feel like the beginning of a flight. It felt like the ceiling of something much larger. Something that had already spilled far beyond the walls of this plane. No one returned to normal. Seatbelts clicked, but slower than usual. Conversations didn't resume the way they should have. Even the overhead lights felt harsher, exposing faces that were no longer pretending not to see. Daniel sat in seat 2A, exactly where he had started. But now the space around him carried weight. Not attention, not curiosity. Recognition. Michael remained near the front, speaking in low tones to someone through his headset. Every few seconds, his eyes flicked back toward Daniel, like he was measuring distance from a center he could no longer control. Amanda had disappeared briefly, then returned, her posture different now, shoulders lower, movements careful, deliberate. She carried a folder this time, not a tablet. Paper. Something that couldn't be edited with a swipe. She approached Daniel slowly, stopping just outside his space. "Mr. Brooks," she said. No edge, no authority. Just his name. She held the folder out with both hands. "This is the written report. Signed, with all personnel listed." Daniel didn't take it immediately. He let the moment sit. Then he reached forward, took the folder, and opened it. The cabin watched. Not openly, but completely. Pages turned. Quiet, controlled. Every movement precise. Names, times, statements. A record of something that, hours ago, would have been dismissed, buried, denied. Now, documented. Daniel closed the folder. "Good," he said. "One word." Amanda nodded faintly, relief flickering across her face for just a second before it disappeared again. "Is there anything else?" she asked. Daniel looked at her. Really looked this time. Not through her, not past her. At her. "Yes," he said. Amanda straightened slightly, bracing. Daniel's voice stayed calm. "When you made that decision, what did you see?" The question landed differently than anything before. Not accusation. Reflection. Amanda opened her mouth, closed it. Her eyes shifted, searching for an answer that didn't sound like an excuse. "I saw," she started, then stopped. The truth sat there, waiting. "I made an assumption," she said finally. Daniel didn't react. "Based on what?" he asked. Her voice dropped. "Based on what I thought belonged in this cabin." Silence followed. Not empty. Heavy. Daniel nodded once. "That's the problem," he said. "Not just her. Not just today. The system." Across the aisle, the woman with silver hair exhaled slowly, her hand resting over her book like she had been holding that breath for years. Michael approached again, but this time there was no urgency in his step, just purpose. "Mr. Brooks," he said, "Corporate has confirmed a full investigation, effective immediately. All crew involved will be suspended pending review." Amanda closed her eyes briefly. She didn't argue, didn't defend herself, because now she understood what it meant. Daniel listened, then gave a slight nod. "That's a start," he said. Michael hesitated. "There's more," he added. "They're preparing a public statement. Press release. They want your approval before it goes out." Daniel leaned back slightly. For the first time since this began, there was space in his posture, not tension, not restraint. Control. "Send it to my office," he said. Michael nodded quickly. Of course. Behind them, engines began to shift, a deeper hum building under the floor. Movement, finally. But no one relaxed, because the real motion had already happened. Richard sat completely still now, his earlier presence erased. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stared forward, a man who had witnessed something he couldn't undo. Daniel glanced at him briefly, just once, then looked away, because this was never about him. The plane began to taxi, slow, steady, and as it moved down the runway, carrying everyone forward, there was a quiet understanding settling into every seat. This wasn't just a delay. It was a line, and it had just been crossed. The plane lifted off the ground without applause. No one clapped. No one smiled. The usual relief of takeoff was missing, replaced by something quieter, heavier. Like everyone on board knew they had just witnessed something that didn't stay in the air. Daniel sat by the window, watching the runway fall away beneath them. The city stretched out below, indifferent, distant. For a moment, everything outside looked calm. Inside, nothing was. The seatbelt sign remained on, a soft chime echoing through the cabin. Flight attendants moved again, but slower now. Careful. Every gesture measured, like they were aware of being watched, even without cameras. Amanda approached once more, this time with a tray. Glassware, not plastic. Her hands were steady, but only just. "Water, Mr. Brooks," she said. No script, no forced warmth, just respect. Daniel accepted it with a small nod. "Thank you." 2 simple words, but they landed differently now. She hesitated for a second, then stepped back, moving down the aisle without another word. No performance, no recovery speech, just quiet acknowledgement. Across the cabin, conversations had returned, but not the same kind. Voices lower, thoughtful. People weren't just talking about what happened, they were thinking about it. The man who had been recording sat back now, phone lowered, replaying the footage with a slow shake of his head. The woman with silver hair looked out her window, her reflection faint against the glass, her expression unreadable but settled. Richard remained still in his seat. He hadn't spoken since the announcement. Not once. His posture was different now. Not upright, not proud, just contained, like he was shrinking into a version of himself that made less noise. Daniel noticed again, and again he let it go. Because this was never about winning a seat. It was about correcting something deeper. The engine's hum deepened as the plane climbed higher. The city disappeared into clouds, the world below fading into white. For a moment, it felt like the aircraft was suspended between 2 realities, one where this kind of thing still happened quietly, and one where it didn't stay quiet anymore. Daniel leaned his head slightly against the seat, eyes closing just for a second. Not from exhaustion, from clarity. He had seen this pattern his entire life. Different rooms, different people. Same judgment. Same silent calculations about where he did or didn't belong. Today, it had been louder, public, impossible to ignore. And that changed everything. His phone vibrated softly in his hand. Messages. Dozens. Then hundreds. Names he knew. Names he didn't. Executives, journalists, strangers. Some angry, some grateful, some simply watching. He didn't open them. Not yet. Because the point had already been made. Not just to the airline. To everyone. Michael passed by once more, pausing briefly. "We'll follow up after landing," he said quietly. Daniel nodded. "I know you will." No tension left in the exchange. Just understanding. The plane leveled out, steady now, cruising above the clouds. From the outside, it looked like any other flight. Inside, it carried a story that was already moving faster than it ever could. Daniel opened his eyes again, looking forward. Not at the seat, not at the people, at something beyond all of it. Because moments like this didn't end when the plane landed. They echoed, they forced change, they demanded it, and somewhere, someone else was watching this unfold, realizing they didn't have to stay silent next time. Daniel took a slow breath, then reached for his phone again, scrolling once, then locking the screen. The message was already out there. All that mattered now was what people chose to do with it. If this story stayed with you, if it made you think about what fairness really looks like when no one is supposed to be watching, take a second to support it, stay connected for more, and drop 3 words in the comments. Stand for justice.